I want to talk a little bit about women and the well-being of women. So Yukon First Nation women, like women across in other Indigenous places and other cultures, wherever you might be, held really a central and a sacred place as keepers of the culture in terms of relationship with the Creator, the land, and the care and nurture of the family and the community. So the health and well-being of girls and women is an essential part of building strong families. So there's many cultural teachings around the cycle of life and teachings that support healthy development of young women. Pregnancy was seen as also as a sacred time when a woman was protected and supported. Many different rules around what you ate, the activity. You had to be active. You couldn't just sort of lay around during pregnancy. That was really frowned on. So we have today, traditional parenting courses, and first and foremost, starting out with Skookum Jim has done the traditional parenting courses for a whole number of years, and other communities will have them come out, or they'll do their own. So, and our teachings say, like there's a lot of focus on with the work I've done around fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, a lot of focus on supporting the mom. And when you go into First Nation communities, they'll say, yes, we want to pay a lot of attention to the mom, but we don't want to forget about the dad. So, in terms of teaching that there's roles and responsibilities for both the mom and the dad, and that it's that balance that helps to create the strong family. And when you don't have the dad, then, being able to bring in other members of the family that can be able to fill that role. Maybe it's an uncle, a grandpa. So, and in Selkirk we have a parent capacity program. It brings the young families together, and they cook and they do different events, and they're learning from the resources and from each other, and it really is building a support amongst the young parents. I want to speak about another program, but at this point, for the Yukon, it's just an idea, or for Selkirk, it's no longer a no longer funded program. We had a family support program that was based on the well-known and very successful PCAP program out of Seattle. That's the Parent Child Advocacy Program. There, I got it right. And it was a stellar piece of research that was led by Therese Grant, and she's done a lot of training and work across Canada and around this, but the premise is that you have a mentor for 3 years, a woman, and the focus is on women in their families, so the primary focus is the woman, a pregnant woman, or she just has a baby, and they targeted women with a lot of challenges in, sort of the downtown core center of Seattle. And they developed this program which offered 3 years of support, and you couldn't be thrown out of the program. If you walked away, fine, but the mentors and the program was always there if you were signed up for 3 years. So it offered support and advocacy for 3 years, connecting women to the needed resources no matter what. The goal was to help women along on their healing journey. Whatever it was they needed, they were helped. They were helped with child welfare issues, court issues, employment, training, dealing with addictions, all these different things. And so the advocate went with them and helped them to become their own advocate. So after 3 years, they're getting training, they're being able to, maybe they've dealt with the addiction issues, and being able to move forward much stronger. So, and the specific goal was to have the next pregnancy be alcohol-free, or if the woman was still drinking, that she was using some form of birth control. And the program was really successful. They took a lot of data, and it was because of that they were then funded again. This model has been adapted and used across the States and also across Canada, but it hasn't been used in the North. And so we in Selkirk, we were unsuccessful in putting in a proposal to do this similar model. We wanted to adapt it. We wanted it to be more family focused. And we did run this family support program briefly. We had a nurse coordinator, and we had 4 outreach workers. They were trained, and they were supporting families in the community. Often it was a family who had a child with an FASD, or maybe both the parent and the child had an FASD. They supported daily living. They just went in and supported people with where they were at, and they worked with the people. And that was important distinction. Like it wasn't, I'm going to go in and tell you what's best for you. I'm going to help you deal with whatever it is you're dealing with today. And it was that kind of ongoing and steady support that really made a difference for that short period of time that that program was in place. It brought a stability to some families that that is no longer there since that support, since the funding, since there was no more funding for that. So I wanted to give that as an example to underline supportive collaboration. So building strong families with a circle of support at the community level, working with families from the perspective of where the family's at, and supporting the natural connection between the mother and child rather than tearing them apart. There are more Aboriginal children. I don't know what the stats are, but I've certainly heard a lot of this discussion. There are more Aboriginal children in care across Canada right now than during the era of the residential school. So really this is an issue of, how do we keep that parent-child connection? And if the child isn't doing well, you can bet, the mom and the dad are not doing so well either. So, broadening out our sort of holistic approach to strengthening families. So, and I guess my plea to all of you this morning is, how can we adopt and adapt a program such as this to suit the Yukon, a model of wraparound support, so we can turn vulnerable families into strong families? It would be good. And I think in the end it would be cost effective. So, and I think I just want to move on, and I think in the past, research that's been done, health research, and dare I say, research on education has been a focus on the deficit and what is wrong and how can we fix it. Today we talk a lot about strength-based approaches. And so how do we move from talking about it to actions about it? How do we put that into that kind of approach on the ground? Ah, there's my stick gambling. It's in the right place. So we learned yesterday and today about the connection between early childhood education and later success in school. More First Nation communities across Canada, as well as the Yukon, are recognizing the value of early childhood education. Selkirk has worked with Yukon Education, and we have a Learning Together program that's just starting, and we're pretty excited about it. So, but we're not only recognizing, but we're remembering that early childhood development is reminiscent of past cultural practices, and I've already talked a lot about cultural practices. But the Royal Commission on Aboriginal People that was done, the report was done several years ago, and it talked about how children learned. They learned as the parents and the family members, extended family and community, were doing the work of the seasonal round, like hunting or fishing, making clothing, picking berries, all done to your age and ability. For example, a friend of mine was telling me about her little 6-year-old granddaughter wanted to help make dried meat. But of course, that's kind of a skill that, you need a big knife to begin with. So she said, well, why don't we let's make some stew meat. So it was easier, with a smaller knife to cut up a little bit of stew meat. And then, so that was her progression. So she was doing what she was able to do. So, I just want to leave off with, the importance of cultural practice, not only in early childhood education, but as healing too. There's treatment centers that use the motto, culture is treatment. There's some research that's going on right now, culture as healing. And we have examples of this in the Yukon, and we need to further those promising practices that support strong families through cultural practice. Yukon First Nation culture should not be thought of as nice to have, but need to have. For example, traditional language classes are critical in building and supporting individuals and communities to restore a language-based knowledge of Yukon First Nation culture. Language is not only a means of translating culture, but also a way of transmitting culture. And as such, if we revitalize these kinds of projects in Yukon Native language, it really is critical to an overarching promising practice for building strong families. Cultural practices such as potlatches, drum making, culture camps, incorporating First Nation culture into programming, and assisting children and youth to connect with culture is a means of strengthening the family. And I just want to leave off with just to mention the Selkirk Spirit Dancers. There was a project that went on, and it was the school. Where am I now? 2 minutes? Okay. There was an agreement between the school, the First Nation, and a PhD student from Ontario. So this young woman came up and she said she had this idea of trying to do a project around culture in this community. And I'm not sure how she even got to Pelly, but she did. And found the resources. We found somebody who knew about the dances, and the school cooperated and they practiced. And then there's a time just before Christmas when the people who are on social assistance are given some extra work, so they get an extra social assistance check just before Christmas. And I was up there doing some work, and I couldn't find anybody. And I went, and there, all of these people who were on social assistance, as well as other people, family members, and they were all gathered and sewing like mad. They were finishing the regalia for the Selkirk Spirit Dancers. It was their gala night, so it was their first night to come and dance, and they performed for the community. So they spent from, I think, September until December, and they learned these songs, and they practiced the dance, and they all came out. Every kid in that school danced from kindergarten up to grade 12, and they were all outfitted in their traditional regalia. And it was really cute because there was these two little guys in kindergarten, and they weren't cooperating even on the day of the practice, and so the teacher was thinking, and it turned out once they got out there, they were just perfect, and they danced like crazy. And they're a couple of the best dancers, and they just, when that drumming starts, and they're ready to go. And it's just been such a proud time and a strong connection for all these kids. It's just, so we're really working to make sure that continues, that the Selkirk Spirit Dancers will will carry on. So I wanted to really briefly mention that strong families will help us to protect the environment, to be advocates and speak up. We in the north in particular, this is a glacier. It's in Alaska, but it really was a glacier. It's now a big lake. So these are some of the bigger urgent issues and reasons why we need to build the strong families and the voice of the North in order to tackle some of the broader global issues. And this is Supergirl. Thank you very much.